Vinney, thank you so much for joining me. You have been on quite a few podcasts, so I'm very excited to share your story here as well. And hopefully a lot of people can learn from your experience. I don't like to share what happened because I think it's better if they hear it from you personally. To me, it's just mind-blowing that you're actually sitting there across from me. But if you don't mind, just to share a little bit about what happened and what led you to being here today.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, number one, it's my pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. And my experience, it starts back in 2003. I was taking a supplement that was fairly new at the time, and I took too strong of a dose, and it ended up becoming toxic inside my body. And I ended up aspirating in the public bathroom of a restaurant. And that's essentially where you vomit and you breathe in your vomit, so you suffocate. And I, for me, it seemed as if the room got very dizzy, and then the next thing I know, I'm looking down at this dead body. I'm looking down at a restaurant that the body was in, and I'm looking at all the different guests in the restaurant, and just kind of trying to understand what was happening. I didn't know that I was dead at all. It's one of those things that's very surreal. You don't know that you're there until you're there. And even then, you don't know for a bit. So as I was looking down at that body, it looked very different than me, even though it was wearing the same clothes as me. I didn't think it was me. I thought it was somebody else. Just oddly, uh, almost like if someone pulls up next to you on a bike and they're wearing the same clothes as you, you're like, okay, but that's not me because I'm over here on this bike. It was just very odd. As I'm sitting there looking down, I had gone in that restaurant with a buddy of mine, a really good friend, and he had also taken the same supplement. And I watched them take him away in an ambulance. I saw emergency services take him away and take him to the hospital. And I could understand that there was some trouble in front of this guy that was dead. But again, I had no idea it was me. And that's where it all starts for me. Is this again is back in 2003, and I was sitting there just trying to figure out what was going on. I had no idea what was going on. It felt very much like entertainment to me. It didn't feel real. And as I watched, they did discover the dead body about an hour after they took my friend away. They found the dead body. They called emergency services for a second time, and that second crew that came out, they tried to resuscitate the body. They couldn't. So they did go ahead and bag that body, put it in the back of the ambulance, and prepared to take it to the medical examiner who would do some type of autopsy or something like that. So they, were getting statements from any witnesses in the restaurant. And as they were trying to understand what happened, this rookie medic, he was brand new. It was his first week on the job. He was the third man. So on this particular medical team or medic team, there was three. There was two veterans and one rookie. And this rookie, he would sit in the back of the ambulance. So he was sitting there staring at this body inside the bag. And he kept having thoughts that I could hear, by the way. He kept having thoughts like, why can't we do more? Why couldn't we try this? Why couldn't we try that? He felt like the two veterans gave up too quick on that body. He wanted to go further and do more for this body. Well, about 30 to 40 minutes later, they got done with gathering all the different statements. They got in the ambulance and they left the scene. And when they were about a half block away from the scene, this rookie medic, he felt, now I talked to him later, he said that he felt something tell him this guy's not dead. Now, for me, I saw it very different than that, but it did align with what he was saying. He just knew something was off about this one, so he was going to, under the radar, he was going to try to resuscitate this body. So he snuck open the body bag. He undid a couple of straps. He was feeling around for a pulse. He didn't feel anything. He opened the body bag even further, and when he was feeling down by the legs for a pulse, he did feel something. And to him, that was enough of a sign, hey, I'm going to go ahead and try to resuscitate this body. So he broke protocol, number one. He broke protocol. He attempted resuscitation. He hooked up a defib machine. And the defib, it shocks the body to help bring the heart back online. And on the first round of shocks, there was nothing. Second round of shocks, he did get a single heartbeat. And then on the third round of shocks, he got a steady heartbeat. And so this body was documented dead 47 minutes from the time they found it and pronounced DOA or dead to the time they started the heart. It was 47 minutes. And then it was likely dead for about an hour before that. So it had quite a bit of time without oxygen, without your regular heart rate. And there was a price to be paid with that. The body was brain dead for 3 more days. And during those 3 days, I began to have my experience. And it's very odd that my experience didn't start until they made the body come back alive. As soon as it came back alive, and they were trying to bring back all the other systems of the body, then I was allowed to leave my body. And I was allowed to go, while my brain was dead, I was allowed to go towards the heavenly realm, towards our home. And yes, there's a lot of people that are going to say there's no such thing as that. But there is. There was for me. And there's no question. It's undeniable for me that there is a heaven. From my perspective, it's the same as feeling like there's earth under my foot. It's just what is. And I had a little mini life review as I recognized that I was watching my own death. I had a little life review. This life review let me see every bad thing that I ever did. It also let me see every good thing that I ever did. And as I made it all the way through that little life review, I started to feel just tremendous amounts of love. And it was pouring on me from behind. And so I turned around to see where this was coming from. And I turn around and I see this man all dressed in white. And I see that he has a long white beard and long white hair. And he has these eyes. These eyes just felt like they were like reaching into you and holding you. And as I saw this man, my first thought was, oh, this is God. And he, without moving his mouth, he said, no, son, I'm not God. And I just instantly received that communication the second that I thought it. So obviously communication is instantaneous there. You have direct communication with each other. And as soon as I thought that, oh, wow, you're not God, then is it somehow that you're Jesus? He smiled and he said, no, son, I'm not Jesus either. He said, my name is Drake. I'm here to help you go wherever you want to go. He said that he was there to be my guide, to help me go wherever I wanted to go. He showed me that I could go back to my body right then. And that was not an option for me. It looked horrible. It looked like hell to me to go back to that body. I told him I wanted to go wherever he was coming from, wherever that love that he was giving to me. I wanted to go there, wherever that was. And he explained that was my home. That was my original home. and I could go back there. So we began that journey of going back home. And what a journey it was. It was not just a journey of moving from the earth space to the heaven space. I had to move from the earth density to the heaven density. And in doing so, I had to understand some eternal principles. I didn't have to fully embrace them. I just had to be willing to accept that they were possibly real. And as I did that, I made my progress up to the heavenly realm, principle by principle, almost like we were climbing a ladder of sorts. And as we made it into the heavenly realm, I got to actually plug in to the heaven space. My feet actually touched down, and they felt the grass like come into my toes and reach up and attach to me. I could feel myself plug in energetically to that space. And I could feel just the most peaceful, loving feeling flow into me through my feet as my feet touched that grass. And I could feel unconditional love, just so much unconditional love from everything there. Not just from Drake, who was my guide, but from everything there. I felt this unconditional love. And I felt it flowing and healing and just purifying me every step of the way. It was purifying me. And as I recognized how amazing just the grass, and by the way, if we wanted to just really describe the grass, we could do it for a day, easy. But the grass, it was full of divine intelligence. And people asked me, people have asked me, did you meet God in heaven? And I said, yes and no. Because I felt God. I felt God, or our creator, in every little piece of heaven. I felt our creator. And at the same time, I felt our creator in the collective of everything there. But I didn't have some personage come up to me and say they were God. I know who God is. I know unequivocally who God is, because I felt God in just the grass. I felt God in the love that Drake was showing me. And later Drake showed me flowers. And then he showed me trees. He also introduced me to water there. And I felt God in all of those things. And as the water approached me, it asked me, do you want us on you? And I said, yes. And this water, it started on my toes, and then my feet, then my ankles, then my calves, and then my knees, then my thighs. And it just slowly climbed up over me. And the coolest thing is it didn't get me wet, but it made me feel warm, and it made me feel cool at the same time. And as it did go up over me, it healed me of any trauma that I had received in this life. And I'd received quite a bit. I've had a really rough life and had quite a bit of abuse in my life. And I watched that abuse get healed and washed away with that healing water. And again, I could feel the love and the heart of God inside that water. I could feel that water was fulfilling its purpose as God programmed it to do. So I'm feeling this healing water come over me, and as it gets to my crown, or the top of my head, it completes, and then it starts coming back down off of me. And as it leaves me, I'm not wet, which again, that was so weird to me. How can water be on you but not, leaving behind part of itself or making you wet? And it came off of me completely. And that's when I noticed that there was a building, a beautiful building. just off in the distance. And I could see that this building was just so full of divine purpose. This building is for education or for learning, and for us to passionately learn anything that we want to learn, anything. And as we become passionate about a topic, we can go in this building and learn the true details of that topic without the misgivings or the manipulations of his story or history. We get to know the truth there. And then I was thinking right then, wow, that's where I want to go next. I want to go to that building. And right then, Drake put his arm around me and he like brought me in close, and he looked at me in the eyes and he said, Vinney, this is going to be really hard, but it's going to be worth it. And he brought me in and he gave me this huge hug. And I felt like in that hug of us coming together, there was this like pulsar or pulse of like boom, of the most powerful energy in the universe, as he just was sharing with me the love he had for me. This huge pulse of energy came off of us, and I could feel power just vibrating, oscillating through us. And out of nowhere, I all of a sudden start hearing my brother on earth. My brother was giving a special blessing to a special prayer to my body. And by the time he got done with that prayer, and he completed the prayer by saying amen, I was forced back into my body. And it took a few moments. And in the real time of how it played out, my brother had said that prayer about 10 p.m. and I woke up at 1:11 in the morning. Like all of my readouts, everything said 1:11, because as soon as I woke up, I was yanking everything off of me, everything. I pulled heart monitor off. I was on full life support. So I was pulling tubes out of my nose, out of my mouth. I was pulling wires off of me. I pulled a catheter off of me. I was completely plugged in, and I pulled everything off. And I just stood there naked for a moment. And I felt it's still so claustrophobic, even though I wasn't, nothing was touching me. I still felt so claustrophobic. And it's because our soul is so much bigger than our bodies. And for my soul to come back into the body fully, it was extremely claustrophobic. Well, I looked down and I realized I was naked, so I had to go and grab something to wrap around my midsection so I could leave. I wanted to leave right then and there. I didn't want to stay in that hospital. So I found a gown, I wrapped it around myself, and I left. I went to go leave. And when I did, the nurses screamed. They had gone into my room looking for me and saw that I wasn't there. They screamed. They thought somebody stole my body at first. But then they turned down and looked down the hallway and saw me standing there. I'm just holding this gown around my midsection. And they made me come back. And I did come back. I went back to my room. And for the next 6 hours pure, they did test after test after test on me. They wanted to prove to me that I was going to go back into a coma any minute. And I didn't believe them. I felt that I was just fine. I had 3 different departments telling me that I was a freak of nature and that I was going to go back into a coma and die. And I just didn't believe them. I chose not to believe them. And after that 6 hours of them doing tests on me, I finally convinced them to let me go. And I did. I checked myself out at 7:30 a.m. Just, a little bit more than 6 hours after I woke up. I checked myself out. And that's where my story begins. Because, for the longest time, I thought that I must be just crazy. I thought that this was all just a delusion. I had doctors telling me that this experience I had was my brain making up things. That's what they told me.
Yeah.
And there was a part of me that thought, well, maybe they're right. Maybe that's what it was, is my brain making up things. But then later, I met an amazing woman. We got engaged, and only 6 months after my experience, I was sitting in a little town in Wyoming in the United States, and I was watching a historical presentation on the town. And they put up some big pictures, up on the movie screen, they put up some pictures of some of the founders of the town. And about the fourth or fifth picture in, I saw a picture of Drake. And it freaked me out.
Wow.
But here's the weird thing. It said his name was Charles. It didn't say his name was Drake. So I was very confused, but I knew it was him. I knew for a fact that it was this man. And I was seeing him for the first time in my life. I had never seen his face ever in my life before, except for my experience. But I recognized his last name. It was the same name my grandmother had as a girl. So I went to her and I said, "Grandmother, who is this Charles Kazare? Tell me who Charles Kazare is." And her exact response was, "Oh, you mean great grandpa Drake? He's kind of famous."
Oh, wow.
And I was just, my brain just exploded. I started crying. I started weeping. And my grandmother went on to tell me that he was known as Drake, which was his middle name. He was known as Drake by all of his friends and family, very close friends and family. And then all of his church connections, all of his business connections, they all knew him by Charles, which was his first name. And even to that aspect, I was given a little bit of a gift, because I had my ego had that moment from seeing that image of Drake and going all the way home, or going to my grandmother's house. I had that window that I could have just said, "You're crazy. His name's Charles. What are you, it's still just your mind making up things." But there's been way too many synchronicities and absolute truth come through my intuition and come through my experience, that I finally had to face the reality that my experience was real. Now there'll still be people that'll debate me, and I tell them I don't share my experience for them. I don't. If they want to debate, go find someone else. I don't share my experience to be debated with them. But I'll tell you what, there's no denying I was pronounced dead. There's no denying I was revived 47 minutes later. There's no denying my brain was dead for 72 hours, for a little over 72 hours. There's irrefutable proof on earth of this experience that goes way beyond earth. And I'm part of an organization now, I joined a few years ago, called the International Association of Near-Death Studies. Short, the acronym is IONS. And the IONS group, there's thousands, literally thousands of people that have had experiences like mine. Some of them more extensive than mine, some of them less extensive than mine, but thousands of people with these experiences. And I'm telling you, there is so much more to our life than we know. There's so much more. There's so much more that religion doesn't allow. They don't allow us to know, because they don't know. To know these things, you'd have to kind of study all the different experiences of people who have died.
I've got so many questions. So I would like to know how your life is different now after that whole experience, because I'm sure you're not the same person you were before. But before we go there, I just want to ask, when you say you plugged in, is it similar to what they say in Avatar? Where that, have you seen Avatar with the tree?
Yes, just
Where
like
they,
that. Yes, yes.
so do you think the director of that movie knows something that we don't know? It's almost like even they plugged into the horse and they
I
connected.
feel I feel that that director, probably either the director or the writer of the story itself, I'll bet that they have either studied near-death experiences or maybe they even had one themselves. But yes, that is how it is. You plug into and connect to anything
Mm.
that you come in contact with there. Anything.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I took ayahuasca once, which was quite a journey. But since that time, they cut down the trees around the house I was staying at. And have felt this connection with trees that I never had before, never. And it almost feels like that plant medicine is now part of my DNA. I was crying. I had to go to the trees and apologize for what had happened because I just couldn't. It's weird, but is it something like that where you kind of feel like you're part of it, or is it something else?
It is. I feel it's something like that. But what's happening ever since I had my experience, I'm now
Mm,
plugged into this energy network. I call it the quantum field,
mm,
and we're all plugged in there. I'm just more aware of how I'm plugged in and what's coming through. And now I'll give your audience a perfect example.
mhm.
Have you ever had a moment where you were thinking about one of your friends, and out of nowhere, that friend reaches out to you, or you see them on the street, but you were thinking about them before the interaction? And the reason you were thinking about them is the quantum field. It was pinging you. It was electrifying you, letting you know that this friend was coming into your consciousness, coming into your space. And so you were thinking about them. And so it's the same thing where you're thinking about that friend, you see them. You start thinking about this other person, that person calls you. That's you being plugged into that same quantum network. And we can plug in to know how our loved ones are doing, know how our friends are doing. We can do it to touch a tree, and you can actually truly feel energy coming from the tree, feel consciousness coming from the tree, the same way you can from an animal or from your friend.
Yeah.
There's energy in all things. And as we plug in and allow that energy to flow through us, we can understand so much more about our universe.
So the the steps, the principles that you follow to get to the other realms, you'd say that's more of a dimensional change rather than something outside of us. It's not like over there. It's
It is.
more maybe a higher frequency, something like that.
Yes, absolutely. And first and foremost, I was taught that I had to learn how to be authentic. And
Mm.
authenticity is the gate or the key to connecting to the heavenly realm. But because you can't fake yourself into heaven, you can't. It's not possible. You can
Okay.
only authentically get there. And that was the first thing I had to learn. I thought it was going to be all about love and love your neighbor, love your friend, love your brother, love your sister. But no, it was about authenticity. That was the first principle I had to learn. And then next I had to learn why I was on earth. And I was taught
Yeah.
that the reason we come to earth is for school. We're given the opportunity to go to school, and we come here for school. We come here to learn. That's it. We
Mm.
don't get to take our incomes with us. We don't get to take any property we own with us. But what we get to take is what we learned from our growth. That we do get to take with us.
Is that a is that an individual learning as well as a collective learning for like humans as a
Both.
species?
Yeah. So we get the individual, and the all the individuals add up to be the collective learning as the species too. Yeah.
Because we're all tapped
And
in. So whatever
we
you
are.
experience, everyone would experience.
Yeah, and there's
So
actually some really
yeah.
neat studies that you can find out there. They were doing studies on this in the 70s where they would put a quiz, put a regular quiz in the New York Times, and they would get about a 5 to 10% accurate response to that quiz in the newspaper, then they would put the answers in Sydney in their paper. And this was before the internet. This is long before the internet. And that same quiz would now get around 80% success or accurate responses if they would publish the answers in a whole nother country that's not even connected to New York. So yes, definitely, there's a lot of science behind the quantum field. Most of it is in quantum physics, but that quantum field is very real. We are all connected to each other in what's called quantum entanglement, or the quantum fabric that is having all of us connected to each other in the fabric of life. Yeah.
Yeah. I heard Anita Mojani's recount of how she had her near-death experience. I think a lot of people know about her. But she also said when she came back, because I know she had stage 4 cancer or something, when she came back, the hospital also refused to release her because they refused to admit that she was better. And she said, I know I'm better. And she let them do biopsies and whatnot just to keep them happy. And eventually she said, I'm done with this. And she walked out knowing she's healed. So you're not the first to say it. And that's, again, proof. Because why would you be sitting here if you have been brain dead for 3 days? That's not possible.
No.
So on that note, if there's like babies that have drowned, for example, and it's heart-rending, but they have now brain dead and they come back to life, is that their soul path? Is that something that they chose to experience? Or would
yes,
that be...
it is.
Okay.
It is 100%. Everything that happens to us, whether we agree to it in the conscious space or not, we did agree to it. Our soul agreed to it. At some level, our soul agreed to everything that ever happens to us. And that's coming from a guy who went through some really heavy abuse as a kid. I did agree to that. And one of the most beautiful things about this life is there's gifts, even to the trauma that we receive, there is gifts. And it's up to us to unlock those gifts or to recognize them in our growth, in our moving forward and loving, forgiving, and learning. And we do volunteer for, and if someone says, I didn't volunteer for this thing to happen to me, okay, you're right, your consciousness here did not, but your higher consciousness did. There's a higher side to all of us. We can call it our soul, we can call it our higher self. It's just the highest aspect of who we are.
Yeah.
The same way that the top of our being is our head on earth, right? The top of our existence in this physical form is our head here, but it's also our feet. So there's a higher side of us, there's a lower side of us. Well, our soul is that too. Our soul has a high side and a low side. The low side of our soul is here, right here. That's what we're seeing bumping around in these flesh suits, these flesh bodies. That's the lowest aspect of our soul, but our soul is much higher than we could ever understand. And that part of us is the part that said, you know what? I want to volunteer for this trauma, and this trauma, because it's going to help me grow exponentially in my soul. Yeah.
So it's not always necessarily karma. It's not that you did something bad to someone and now it's your turn. It could just be to say, I want to know what it feels like.
There is karma, but it's not reactionary. It is consciously engaged. So karma is not something that happens because of us. Karma is what happens because we choose it.
Okay. So karma is something you chose before you came into the body.
Mm-hmm.
Can you change it?
Absolutely. We are the creators of our own reality. And that's always how it's been. From day one, that's how it's been. And in fact, the way that the Creator created us, we realized we are many creators ourselves. So we get to follow whatever rule works, but we can't avoid ourselves. So we can't make this rule and say we're not going to follow it. We made that rule. Like we have to follow our own rule. Yeah.
So if you changed your own rule, that would be okay.
Yeah. Unfortunately, in the conscious space, it's really hard to change your own rule. Yeah.
So would you say this experience that you've had, is that an exit point that you set up for yourself?
I thought for sure it was. I felt as if my own free agency was removed when I was forced back into my body. I felt as if God took control and sent me back. Now later, I'm a big fan of meditation. I do meditation daily. And in a deep meditation, I was able to connect with my own higher self. And it was lovingly telling me and tapping me on the head and saying, it's okay. The higher aspect of you, which is me, is what said, let's send him back because he needs to help other people understand more about heaven. And to me, I feel that's what every NDE experiencer is they are a kind of a public relations campaign for heaven, because we all come from there, but we forgot about it, and we're listening to all these religions that try to teach us what heaven is without actually going there.
Yeah.
But we can discover heaven here. We can make this place heaven. And as we do, we connect ourselves and draw ourselves closer to the real heaven. And, you know,
Yeah.
I love Anita Morjani's experience. In fact, we're going to be speaking, we're both going to be keynote speakers at the IANS conference this year. So,
Oh, nice.
and so if you can make it out to Arizona at
I'd
the
love
end
to.
of, let's see, the end of August, last weekend of August, they're doing a big conference, and she is an amazing woman. We're going to have another amazing woman, Suzanne Giesman, and a couple of others all speaking out there, talking about our experiences, and not just with our near-death experiences, but our metaphysical experiences that can give us some kind of understanding that we are much larger than these physical bodies that we walk around in and we live in. We are much bigger than this. Our soul has such a divine purpose with this existence.
Yeah, absolutely. I just found it interesting that in the Bible, when miracles happen, it was okay, but it's not allowed to happen in real life.
Yeah. Well, you know what? If anyone says it's not in the Bible, I'm not going to believe it. Well, you've been worshiping, if you're Christian, you've been worshiping Jesus by a fake name. Jesus wasn't his name. Jesus was not a name that was used by any Hebrew until about 150 years after his crucifixion. His real name is Yeshua. Yeshua, not Jesus. And so, you know, we believe his story or history because that's what we're told. And even how the Bible was formed, I love the Bible, but the Bible was formed by the Council of Nicaea. And even before the Council of Nicaea, by 500 years, there was a council that debated what was going to be in the Torah and the Talmud and the Kabbalion. All of these books, these holy scriptures, they were changed. Even the Quran itself was one book, and then it was chopped up to become a different book at the turn of the century. So all of these holy scriptures, if they don't fit the paradigm of the leader who's holding the scripture, that leader changes the scripture. That's why we call it his story, because unfortunately each time it's a male structure or a patriarchy that does this. But I want you to know what's beautiful, though, and what's amazing is even with the manipulation that's been put over all the different scriptures, God is still there. You can still find God in all of those scriptures. You can still find God in your daily experiences, even if you're living around a bunch of ignorance. And that's the beauty of God is going to speak to you if you look for it. You'll find that connection with the Creator.
Yeah, and I think that's what they're looking at. So they're taking all of it at face value rather than seeing what's the spirit within. I did watch, there was a TikTok the other day. She said that the most popular phrase in the Bible is, it comes up over 400 times, is do not be afraid.
Do not be afraid. Yeah.
And I mean, that's just saying something. Okay, so tell me, this heaven, right? I've done like life between life regression and stuff like that, and somebody's once called it Summerland. And is that like also an in-between place? Because we also go to higher realms and so on.
Yes, it's kind of like I love how J.K. Rowling talks about in Harry Potter. I love how she talks about Harry going to King's Cross Station when he allows himself to die, right? So he goes to this King Cross Station, and that's what it's like. It's like this way station where we go and we get the healing that we need for our soul. We also get the education that we need to get to the next level of whatever we would like to do next. And then we go back out. We go back out for another destination, or we move on to another existence. Like we get to have it, it's just this, we live for an eternity. Our soul will live for an eternity. And it's kind of asinine to think that we spend 80 to 100 years bumping around on this rock called Earth, and now we're going to go hang out in some etherical cloud for an eternity. No. we get to keep playing. We get to keep playing. We get to keep going and having fun and learning and growing. And if we don't want any more time on Earth, we're done with Earth. We get to go to another place if we want to. But Earth is one of the hardest schools. They, in the heavenly realm, they refer to Earth as the Earth School. And it's considered like the, I don't know, what's one of the hardest schools you can think of. That's the way Earth is looked at. It's one of the hardest schools because it's the furthest distance school from heaven or from our Creator. Okay. And to go that far away from our Creator, that's what makes it so hard.
Is that because we forget, or the other places we go that we forget?
The further there's other places that we forget most of what we are or who we are, but we don't forget fully who we are. But on Earth, we do. We forget every aspect of who we really are. And so we are learning in blind ignorance here. And that's what makes it one of the hardest schools. It's kind of like you're living at home. Your mom and dad say, it's time to go to university. And you, on your way to university, you get a concussion, and now you can't remember who you are. That's what Earth School is. That's what Earth School is.
Or the wave of what did Dolores Cannon call it? Anyway, the first wave
of
and the second. The volunteers, yeah. Did they come with more sentience? I mean, I feel like I remember certain things when I was very young, knowing I didn't come from here, but that's all I knew, and nobody could give me the answers. So
I'll give you the answer that God showed me in heaven. That life here on Earth is like a batch of cookies. First, you're going to start out with the flour. Then you're going to put a pinch of baking soda in there, or baking powder. Then you're going to put a little salt, maybe some egg or some oil or butter. Then you're going to add the sugar. Then you're going to add the chocolate. Then you're going to mix it all together, and then you're going to bake it. So at each level of ingredient, it's coming with a divine purpose, right? And so the Earth itself, until recently, we were just the flour and just the egg and just the salt. And now we're starting to get the sweetness coming. And the sweetness, a lot of people don't like the sweetness because these kids, they come with an easy life, but they're signing up for a very hard life. And that's the sweetness. We're going to see divinity come out of these kids, these volunteers who are coming in these last waves. They're coming to do some great things and live some pretty hard lives. So yeah, in the beginning, it looks like they have such an easy life, but it's not always going to be easy for them.
Yeah, I was told my son spends a lot of time in bed because he says, why must I be up? I'm studying, I'm doing what I need to. But I was told by a psychic that this is his resting time. He's actually going to be working so hard, and most people get it at the end when they retire, but for him, it's the other way around. So
Yeah,
it's
it's like
easy
reverse.
to say that, but
It
I
is,
get
yeah.
that.
It's like all these kids are coming in reverse retirement, right? They're coming in living this easy, posh life, only to engage later and have a kind of a very hard, not hard, but very engaged experience here on Earth after they've had their resting phase.
So now you came back saying that you thought maybe you're crazy because, of course, the doctors are going to tell you that, and you're delusional. But how do you know that you're not like delusional?
Well, I've had my spirit guides ever since my experience. I had them before my experience. I just didn't know that I had them. My experience turned on my connection to them even stronger, and they've helped me through so many things. Just event after event, they've helped me through so many things. They also help me understand and know things that I probably wouldn't understand or know otherwise. And especially when I'm working with someone, my day-to-day job is I'm a healer, I'm a life coach. I help people change their own lives. I help them activate their own divinity within and bridge that connection with their own guidance team. And part of that job is to understand what the real threat is to their intuition. And a lot of people are saying, oh, I want intuition, but I've prayed, I've meditated, I've studied scripture. I can't get that connection with the creator. And that's when my intuition, my guides will work with their guides. And I will instantly see what the actual hindrance is, what's really preventing them from connecting to their own divinity. And I've just had thousands and thousands of instances now where my intuition was 100% accurate and correct. Now, anytime it's not 100% accurate, it's me that's not accurate. It's my interpretation of what they're trying to teach me or show me. That's where it's not accurate. But as I get better and better year over year, I'm getting more attuned to listening to that intuition and following it every single time that I can recognize it anyway.
Yeah, well, it's a muscle you're building.
It is.
So what are the most common reasons that they can't connect?
One of the number one reasons is they're living the traditional Western diet and lifestyle. It is built to disconnect you from your intuition. It is. If you're eating foods with brand names on them, and that's pretty much what you're eating all the time, you are disconnecting yourself from your intuition. If you are eating genetically modified foods every day, you're disconnecting yourself from your intuition. If you're using the toothpaste that everybody else uses, you're disconnecting you. If you're using the deodorant that everyone uses, you're disconnecting yourself. So it's like if you just live the traditional Western lifestyle, you are disconnecting yourself at every single level from that intuition. And that's, some people might want to argue that that's by design. That's up to interpretation. But I'll tell you, it does. And I can tell you the second I stopped doing what everyone else was doing was the time that I started getting closer and closer and closer to that connection. Now, I will go and live the Western diet and I will watch my connection get harder and harder to connect through. So I know I can see it in my own life when I'm doing that. It's kind of like adding mud to the water, and now I can't see.
Well, isn't your body the tuning fork, like the receptor?
Your body is the receptor.
Satellite.
Yep.
Okay. So what about cell phone towers and 5G and all that?
That's part of the Western American or Western lifestyle. Yeah, it's all part of it. There is different devices that work for helping protect you against that energy. I use one of those devices myself. I'm wearing it right now. It's just a little medallion.
Is it the Orgon?
And it's so people do Orgon. I do Q-Link. So I do a Q-Link. A Q-Link is a little copper coil suspended in a frame.
Okay.
And what it does is actually a lot of PGA players wear them, a lot of NFL players wear them. They feel that it allows their nervous system to be not bombarded by the electrical network around them. That's both, radio waves, cellular waves, and electromagnetic fields. It just helps clean that up and allow the body to function at a higher level, especially in the neurology. The neurology it's provable there.
Yeah, well, I come from South Africa and I noticed that they've removed copper supplements from the shelves. And I
Mm-hmm.
found that was very interesting because
Yeah, copper, silver, and gold. Those are the metals that you want in your body. You're not in heavy amounts, but you want, the forms of copper, silver, and gold that are good for your body. Those are the forms that you want, but you don't want much of any of the other metals, though, other than maybe a little bit of iron, right? So it's like all of the bad metals, they're getting put into everything. They're getting put into different forms of medicine that the whole world is being forced to take. They're being put into supplements. They're even putting petrochemicals into most of your medicines, most of them. So it's like we're sitting there poisoning the body, and we're wondering, why are we getting sicker and sicker? And why is our lifespan getting shorter and shorter? And that's why. Is because we're poisoning everywhere you turn. There's poison. So what you have to do is you have to do a little bit of research, do a deep dive for yourself, and find, especially using your intuition, you're going to find what help you need the most. Yeah.
Yeah. Your life is so different. You took that supplement because you were a bodybuilder at the time, and obviously you're a bit older as well, so you have different phases in our life. But how is your life different? Are you this? You can't possibly be the same person you were before.
No, I'm a very different person. I still, try to take care of my body a little bit, but mostly what I focus on is spirit. It's like my main focus every single day. It's what I do. I help others connect to spirit, connect to their divinity. People and the energy around the people. That's what's most important to me. So that's what my priority is every single day. Is the people, the energy, and but also not just the people, actually the beings. So the animals, the trees, the plants, like everything, all forms of life, and that includes like Mother Gaia herself, Earth. And I just have a tremendous amount of love and respect for all beings in all forms.
Do you think that experience was a wake-up call? Were you on the right track, or do you think, because was that for bodybuilding that you were, was that?
Yeah, I would say that I was on an okay track. I understood about the body pretty well back when I was bodybuilding, but I wasn't honoring the energy of my body. And that I needed to learn through the experience. And so I do. I really focus on honoring the energy of my body and sticking with that as I connect to my own divinity and work with other people every day.
Yeah, well, sounds like you've come a very long way. And
yeah, really long way. And in fact, a lot of people who knew me back then, they even say, they're like, yeah, he's different now. He's in a good way. I'm a lot different now.
Well, would you say you're more you?
I would say I am. I'm not a kind of a fake version of me. I am just me. I don't try to be something else for other people anymore. And it's been now 21 years that I don't do that anymore. I just be me. And I love being me. It's not as easy as what people might think, but and Anita Morjani will testify to this. Once you've been in heaven, one of the hardest things to do is to smile and be alive here, because you know what's on the other side for us. So, but I would say, just like she does, that you don't want to waste the opportunities that this life gives you to amplify the love energy around you. And you can take small amounts of love and amplify them to be great amounts of love, and love and serve your fellow being in the way you are and the way you treat them. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So authentic, like, that's a buzzword. But what does it actually mean to be authentic? Is it kind of like dropping into yourself? How would it feel? Is it listening to your needs, or what is that?
So here's what I challenge people to do who want to find out who they really are. Is I want you to go into your mind and think about all of your social circles that you have. Most of us have family social circles, right? So like we have our family that we grew up in. So we may be one version of ourselves when we're with our family, but then we may have one sibling that when we go off with that sibling, we're kind of a different person. And so we have two identities, right? Now I want you to think about work. Who are you when you go to work? Now you have a third identity. Then I want you to think, who are you when you go with your friends? You have a fourth identity. Who are you when you're this job or this job? So any different callings in life, you're going to have a different identity. And as a mother, you're going to have a completely different identity. And as a father, you're going to have a completely different identity. My challenge to anyone is to take all these identities and combine them to become one identity. That you are the same person, whether you're with your parents, your children, your friends, your sibling, your coworkers, your bosses. I mean, just at work, people have two identities. They have their identity with their coworkers, and then they have their identity when the boss is around. So it's like we need to become the same person, speaking, acting, and behaving the same way, whether our boss is around or whether our child is around. We need to be that same person. And it's not going to happen overnight, but just recognizing that there's different aspects of you and bringing them all together to become one, that is so beautiful. And on the day that you realize you are now authentic, it's like all the restraints have been taken off of you. You can just be you, not the version of you at work, not the version of you at home. Just be you. And in this life, we see the most authentic people are little children that are 5 years old or younger. They're very authentic. They'll tell you exactly how they feel. They'll tell you what you're wearing, if it looks good or if it doesn't. They'll tell you if you look skinny or look fat. They're honest and authentic. Children are, right? But here's the other group that's really authentic. The people that are over 85 years old. By the time you're 85, you're done playing anyone else's game. You are you. You're not going to try to be something other than you are yourself. And so, coming in this life in the beginning, and as we get ready to leave this life, we allow authenticity. But for some reason in between, we think we have to be all these different versions of ourselves for all the people around us, and we don't need to. We can pull it together to just be one. And then we don't have to worry about what story we're telling or who we are. We could just be ourselves everywhere we go. And once you find that authentic self, you have now built a foundation that you can build your existence on. But until then, you're just building a bunch of houses of cards. That's all you're building in your life.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah, absolutely. So, Vinney, where can people get hold of you?
So I run everything through my nonprofit. My nonprofit is livinggodslight.com. They can connect to me. They can book a session with me. They can get my book there. Everything through livinggodslight.com. Yeah.
Okay, I'll put your book on my website as well. And do you have a message for the audience before we go?
Well, the one thing I like to share with everyone is know that you are a divine masterwork. Whether you feel like you are or not doesn't change the fact that you are. The fact that you're sitting and existing in your space, in your life, is you are existing in a sacred space in a highly sought after location. Like Earth School is the hardest to get into. And there's a lot of souls out there. They want to all come to Earth School because it is the hardest one to get into. So the fact that whether you feel that you're successful or you're failing at this life, it doesn't change the fact that you were successful by just getting here. So allow yourself to know that you are a divine masterwork. You are precious to the Creator, and that the universe loves you, the Creator loves you. Allow yourself to love you, and you'll start recognizing how precious your own life is.